Here's my definition, or one of them. I'm going to actually read you a quote from my new book on what I think of as the goals of the goals of trauma work in terms of a post-traumatic growth model. Positive psychological change experienced as a result of struggling with challenging, highly stressful circumstances or traumatic events. Life-changing psychological shifts in thinking and relating to the world and the self that contribute to a personal process of change that is deeply meaningful. Positive psychological change experienced as a result of struggling with adversity. Life-changing psychological shifts in thinking and relating to the world and the self that contribute to a personal process of change that is deeply meaningful. In this approach, symptoms are recognized as coping strategies. So we honor the symptoms for the purpose they fulfilled. We don't pathologize them. We say that your trauma history does not define you, and it doesn't in any way preclude life with meaning, joy, and purpose. And this approach seeks transformation by rebuilding the core beliefs that are challenged by trauma, the belief about who you are and what's possible for you in the future. In fact, this approach focuses more on the future than on the past. We don't ignore the past, of course, and we don't say that the past doesn't affect the present, but we also think that the future can affect the present if you can imagine a different future, a positive future. And we want to talk about how we do that therapeutically. And this way of working with trauma overlaps with the positive psychology movement. The key figure in this approach is a guy named Richard Tedeschi. His key bibliography is on the reading list. Post-Traumatic Growth Theory, Research and Applications, it's 2018. Transformed by Trauma, Stories of Post-Traumatic Growth, 2020. And the positive psychology movement would be represented by Marty Seligman. Some of you are familiar with Marty Seligman, who wrote a book called Authentic Happiness, using the new positive psychology approach to realize your potential for lasting fulfillment, and Learned Optimism, another classic. Now, the title of this webinar is The Paradox of Trauma. Well, what does that mean? It means that from adversity can come healing, resilience, meaning, purpose, and psychological growth. And that idea can be represented or reflected in some statements like, from loss comes gain. Some of these are cliches, of course. When one door closes, another door opens. A crisis is an opportunity. Pain makes us empathic and connects us with others. I ended my new book. The last thing I said in my book was a quote from Wayne Mueller, who wrote a book called Legacy of the Heart. And I want to quote it now because it relates to this idea of the paradox of trauma. He says, I realize it requires a tremendous leap of faith to imagine that your childhood, punctuated with pain, loss, and hurt, may, in fact, be a gift. Don't get me wrong, it would be sadistic to suggest that people suffer in order to learn and grow, but we can learn and grow as a result of suffering. And by the way, suffering is inherent in life. I've studied lots of religions and particularly Buddhism. And basically, if you know anything about Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths attributed to the Buddha after 2 years sitting under a Bodhi tree in what is now Thailand is that life involves suffering. It's almost a given.